James Monroe Munyon is best remembered for his success at flamboyant promotions of patent medicines, but he took enormous personal pride in his musical compositions. As a young man in Connecticut, he was raised in a musical household, immersed in Protestant church hymns. Munyon developed a tenor voice of exceptional range and power. He loved to sing in public, and from several friends in the community he learned musical composition. During his adult life, he wrote words and music for nearly 24 songs, with political, patriotic, religious, romantic, and sentimental themes. The Liberty Song and the Nation's Song were two of Munyon's 5 patriotic compositions, written, so he hoped, as candidates to become our national anthem. Don't Speak Unkindly, Yes, Darling, Thy Bride I Will Be, and Down Where the Pawpaw Grows have been selected from his 10 compositions with sentimental and romantic themes.
Freedom extending to battle. each star. Revere each stripe, salute each star.
The songs from Munyon's pen were not well known, but Munyon himself was an infamous part of the popular culture of his day. He was the butt of numerous jokes, cartoons, and songs. Instead of just saying hello, friends would pass in the street, raise their index fingers heavenward, and chant, "There's a Munyon pill for every ill." "Hope cures more than dope," or simply, "There is hope." In 1915, a song about indigestion from Franz Lehar's hit Broadway operetta, Alone at Last, lampooned the famous Munyon pawpaw pills. This song, called Some Little Bug, was re-recorded in 1945 by Phil Harris.
Some little bug is going to find you someday. Some little bug will creep behind you someday. And then he'll send for his bug friends and all your earthly troubles end. Some little bug is going to find you someday. Now take a slice of nice fried onion and then you can call for Dr. Munyon. Apple dumplings will kill you quicker than a train.
The most famous song about the patent medicine king was a humorous piece entitled The Dr. Munyon Song. With words and music in 12 verses poking fun at Munyon's medicines, the song was released in 1907, immediately after the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act.
There is a doctor in this land, and he is wondrous wise. His remedies cure every ill that nature can devise. We really ought to send for him. We need him, I am sure. For we are troubled with complaints that no one else can cure. Dr. Munyon, what are we going to do? We need you, it's true. Bring your medicine chest with you. If you'll fix up our complaints, the first thing to attack is to cure the girl who wears her bonnet halfway down her back. Good Dr. Munyon always tells his patients there is hope. There's not much hope for anyone that studies nursing dope. We get a short intent to play a horse at 5 to 3. The horse we play don't come in until after 6, you see. Dr. Munyon, what are we going to do? We need you, it's true. Bring your medicine chest with you. You're the man who writes the tips the papers give us free. They think they know what horse will win. They're crazy as can be. Dressmakers say that women's gowns will all be straight this fall. They mean that fashionable girls will show their hips at all. Since this decrees society is in an awful state, for Newport will be very dull with all the women straight. Dr. Munyon, what are we going to do? We need you, it's true. Bring your medicine chest with you. If the ladies won't wear hips, why everybody knows you will have to cure the fat girls. Oh, they can't wear any clothes. Good old John Dean was brought to court. They gave him quite a fine. For out of all his millions they have fined him 29. It worries him so much he only eats 4 meals a day. It was all right to fine poor John, but who can make him pay? Dr. Munyon, what are we going to do? We need you, it's true. Bring your medicine chest with you. Give John Dean a sleeping powder when he goes to die, or he'll have to be unconscious or he'll never pay the time. Republicans can't find a president for 98. They're looking all around to get a good, strong candidate. They say
The earliest song to poke fun at Munyon wasn't the Dr. Munyon song in 1906 or Some Little Bug in 1915, but Mr. Dooley from 1902. The Thomas Edison Museum preserves an original Edison recording on wax cylinder of this song performed by Willard Denny, a Philadelphia musician. In more than 30 verses, Denny's song lampoons politicians, kings and queens, world conflicts, Teddy Roosevelt, and consumer products. Denny took the inspiration for his verses from the published adventures of a fictional globe-trotting Irish bartender, Mr. Dooley, who by extraordinary wisdom and might seemed able to solve all the world's problems. Mr. Dooley was the invention of Finley Peter Dunn, a Chicago newspaper reporter who spun yarns in coast-to-coast newspapers about Mr. Dooley's intervening in difficult situations. In the stanzas that follow, performed by Frank Field of the website Sheet Music Singer, we learn that it was Mr. Dooley who led Roosevelt's Rough Riders up San Juan Hill, and that it was Mr. Dooley who gave Marconi the idea for the wireless telegraph. Finally, barely a decade after Munyon launched his struggling proprietary medicine company, and just at the time the public was beginning to know Munyon's name, the imaginary Mr. Dooley stepped up and explained in song how it was really he who made Munyon famous.
This country never can forget we never will. The way the boys at San Juan, they went charging up the hill. Though Teddy got the credit of that awful bloody fray, the hero who deserved it and the man who saved the day, 'twas Mr. Dooley, 'twas Mr. Dooley. Like a locomotive up the hill he flew, who drove the Spaniards back to the 10 years. 'Twas Mr. Dooley, ooly, ooly, ooh. Now wireless telegraphy is cutting quite a dash, and messages across the sea are sent now like a flash. With all the great inventors it has made an awful hit, and but few of them acknowledge that the man invented it was Mr. Dooley, Mr. Dooley. To Edison he taught a thing or two, and young Marconi eats macaroni along with Mr. Dooley, ooly, ooly, ooh. A doctor in the city once, his business it was bad. His name it was unknown, for not a customer he had. But now his name is famous, his success it is assured, just through a certain party that the certain doctor cured. 'Twas Mr. Dooley, 'twas Mr. Dooley, that made the doctor known to me and you. For Dr. Munyon once cured a bunion, for Mr. Dooley, ooly, ooly, ooh.
Munyon loved these popular songs about him, for they contributed to name recognition and image building. He was far less sanguine about how the press riveted the public's attention on a murder which occurred in England in 1910 and which tarred Munyon and his myriad of tiny sugar pills. The widely publicized event seriously damaged Munyon's attempts to build a market for his products in the UK. A homeopathic physician, Hawley Harvey Crippen, whom Munyon had formerly employed as his British business agent, was now practicing as a dentist in London. Crippen exploited his credentials as a medical employee of the Munyon Company to purchase 300 milligrams of a highly toxic alkaloid, hyoscine, from a Mrs. Hicks, a dealer in botanical raw materials. Hyoscine was a drug known for its sedative properties and, at the time, was used in extremely small doses by physicians to subdue violent mental patients. It had no known dental applications. Crippen was indicted for the murder of his wife Belle with the hyoscine he'd purchased on Munyon's account. He was returned to England for trial after fleeing to Canada and was convicted and was hanged. Testimony at the trial supported the view that Crippen had infused the pills in a bottle of Munyon's medicine with a fatal dose of hyoscine. Dozens and dozens of such preparations consisting of tiny sucrose-laden homeopathic spheres, both from Munyon's company and a half-dozen other competitors, were widely available in England for every disease under the sun. Normally, they contained so little actual medication that handfuls were swallowed in the hope of achieving some therapeutic effect. That being the case, Bell's poisoning from pills enhanced with hyoscine would easily have been fatal. In a macabre way, a number of songs and even rope-skipping chants about the Munyon-Crippen case became popular all over England. Here's a schoolgirl chanting the rope-skipping verses.
Dr. Crippen killed Bell his wife, fled with Ethel for his life, right across the ocean blue, followed by Inspector Dew. Ships ahoy, naughty boy, a tiny ship, a toxic dose. Belle Elmore gave up the ghost. Mistress Ethel, she stayed too, till captured by Inspector Dew. Ships ahoy, naughty boy.
Dr. Crippen killed Bell his wife, fled with Ethel for his life, right across the ocean blue, followed by Inspector Dew. Ships ahoy, naughty boy. A tiny pill, a toxic dose. Belle Elmore gave up the ghost. Mistress Ethel, she stayed true, till captured by Inspector Dew. Ships ahoy, naughty boy. He'd cut her up in bloody gore, buried her belly neath the floor, her tummy scar, the fatal clue, identified by Inspector Dew. Ships ahoy, naughty boy.
The Crippen murder lingered long in British memory. Between 1910 and 1960, there were 3 films, 8 plays, 39 books, 564 newspaper articles, and countless songs about it. For 5 decades, wax mannequins of Crippen and his lover were on display in Madame Tussauds London Wax Museum. One of the most bizarre productions was a musical hall comedy called Belle, or The Ballad of Dr. Crippen, that opened in 1961 to a very short run at the Strand Theatre in London. One critic called it a sick joke set to music. Among many grotesque components were the victim herself singing to the audience from heaven, while the murderer and his mistress were dancing and singing about their future together. Here, from the musical Belle, the narrator first sets the scene, and the entire cast pokes fun at homeopathic pills and how they were used in the poisoning of poor Belle.
Aspirins, arsenics, come round to Mrs. X. I'm sure that I can fix you up with some pills, 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 pills to cure all ills. For a headache, backache, toothache, earache, even got a remedy for tummy full of earache. Pills, pretty pills, 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 even got someone killed. My happy drop dead from a blue and a red, come and have another bottle of assorted pills. Pills, 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 pills for the winter chills. For a face ache, neck ache, any other partache, even got a remedy for belly full of heartache. Pills, pretty pills, pills, homeopathic pills. For a hubby or a wife who's stacking out your life, come and have another bottle of assorted pills. To cure for sure whatever ails, wonderful stuff and it never fails. It'll leave no marks, leave no trails, just a great big swig and peace prevails. Have another bottle of assorted pills. Pills, pretty pills, 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 pretty pills, 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 pretty pills, 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 pills to cure all ills.
The Crippen debacle embarrassed Munyon and destroyed his British business, but the second decade of the 20th century brought him far more serious problems at home in the USA. The Food and Drug Act was finally having a negative effect on his drug business, tourist traffic to his hotels had dropped, his third marriage was coming to a bitter end, and he was feeling his age. A 70th birthday party for the medicine millionaire at the end of the 1917 summer season at the Munyon Springs Hotel turned out to be especially prophetic. A song written for the occasion by a panel of guests at the hotel was intended to thank Munyon for being a generous host and friend, but ended up being a final recognition. Munyon never returned to Maine and died 7 months later in Florida.
There once was a professor, as you well do know, who said, I'll surely cure you, but please write and tell me so. There's nothing can escape me in the way of human ills. If you only come to me no more, just take my papa pills. It's a long way to Mingo Springs, oh, it's a long way to go. It's a long way from the city to where Munyon makes things go. May his birthdays be many, his genius have full scope. Long, long live our Dr. Munyon, for where he is, there's hope. If you find when you get there your cottage somewhat small, or that you're without a house, don't be annoyed at all. It only takes a moment to add on a room or two, or if you like your rooms again, he'll build that for you too. It's a long way to Mingo Springs, oh, it's a long way to go. It's a long way from the city to where Munyon makes things go. May his birthdays be many, his genius have full scope. Long, long live our Dr. Munyon, for where he is, there's hope. His fame has spread o'er all the land from sunny south to Maine, as Dr. Lover, poet, toasty Canary Heights and Tay. He's a symbol of eternal youth, this man of 17, and we're all sure he'll still be young when he's a century. It's a long way to Mingo Springs, oh, it's a long way to go. It's a long way from the city to where Munyon makes things go. May his birthdays be many, his genius have full scope. Long, long live our Dr. Munyon, for where he is, there's hope.
Following his death on March 10, 1918, Munyon's many friends wrote flowery obituaries and poetic memorials to him. While sentimental and tearful, those encomiums can't match what Munyon himself wrote for an inscription on his own tombstone. I am sure if I reach that great good place where nations are blended into one common race, where caste is unknown and creeds are no more, where the rich and the poor alike enter the door, I shall hear a voice saying, "There's a jewel for thee, as you did unto others, ye did unto me." Thus ended the colorful career of one of America's most famous patent medicine merchandisers, whose ubiquitous advertisements, catchy slogans, saccharine songs, and larger-than-life persona earned him a place in America's memory for half a century.